So, do you need one Bitcoin to set yourself up for life? Let's look at it. Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. If you're new, make sure you have subscribed, hit the bell button and leave a like. I hope you are good. Now, question, how much Bitcoin do you have? I don't want to know the full answer, just think of it and say it out loud, okay? Do you have enough? Do you have any? Some people don't, right? I really don't get that. Anyways, right? So, I've seen a few videos going around saying this is how much of this you need, this, that, whatever, right? No one really talks about Bitcoin though, right? And I just can't fathom it. Now, for me, I'm not a maximalist. I'm an altcoin whore who likes to basically trade them to make more Bitcoin. That's kind of the game I play. It's great. I love it. But there's a lot of things that people forget about Bitcoin in terms of how it is, why it works, what's so amazing about it. They always look at, oh, look at this coin. It can do transactions per second much faster than Bitcoin. No. If you read the white paper, a lot's changed since then. Yes, the fundamentals still physically freaking work. Like probably, in my opinion, the best fundamental driven coin in the atmosphere. For me, overall. It's because it works better as a currency, a money, monetary value, a store of value, in my opinion. Whereas everything else is kind of a medium of exchange, in my opinion. That's overall how I think, right? So when we look at it and we think about it and we think in logical terms, it's, for me, gone as a store of value, right? So it's became peer-to-peer to store of value due to the scarcity, due to demand, supply, all kinds of good stuff, right? We'll talk about it. Anyways, this article kind of caught me and thought, well, what is the real amount? And you can see here, right, if I scroll down, how much Bitcoin do you need to be in the top 2% of the holders? Well, this was an unbelievable kind of discovery for me. It's actually nowhere near as much as people make out. And it's actually 0.28 BTC, technically, right? In terms of at the time, the supply and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to become, say, a part of something that, you know, who knows, right? In 10, 20 years' time, you could be in the top 2% of the asset holders of Bitcoin by just having 0.28 BTC in your portfolio, which is crazy. It's huge. A few million sats, yeah. It's all right, realistically, let's think about it. So, for me, though, I think 1 BTC. I think 1 BTC is that golden number because there's only so many million. We know that. There's 21 million made. There's 1 million in Satoshi's wallet. There's probably about 4 million lost. And there's a load that won't be mined until we're deed. Basically, simple as that, right? So, for me, I think as a scarce asset, I think that is the main thing. But we've got to look at that as why it's so important, because even though this is all speculation and this is not financial advice that it could go up or whatever, but I think if you are accumulating and if you are gradually growing your portfolio, and I'm going to explain reasons why I do it and how I do it, we've got to look at the scarcity factor. There's only so many million. It works very, very well as a store of value. We've figured that out very, very easily. They've got increased quantitative easing and inflation with the US dollar, meaning Bitcoin could, and it already has in my opinion, becomes more of an asset for people to put their wealth into, even though it is incredibly volatile. At the end of the day, it's an option for people, and that's what we want. We want Bitcoin to be recognized and to be an option. That is, for me, enough. If you've got all these treasury funds, if you've got all these wealth managers, if you've got all these pension funds, and they're going, I've got a 3-5% of spare cash here, I'm going to lose some of that if the USD keeps dying. I'm going to put that into Bitcoin. Why not? What else am I going to do with it? I'm going to put it more in stocks, still volatile. Going to buy some classic cars? Maybe not. Buy some art? Maybe not. You know, at the end of the day, they're going to put it into something. You got gold, you got property, you got blue chip art, and you've got the likes of Bitcoin, right? Why not? You're not going to buy Dogecoin. You're not probably going to buy Ethereum. Realistically, you're going to put more of it in Bitcoin versus Ethereum, in my opinion, because it's you know, this is a market maker at the end of the day. So when we look at the stock to flow model, supply and demand, relative value to the scarcity, it's probably going to go up, like gold did, like other things in markets do when you factor in scarcity. Go and look at all classic cars. They just keep going up. It's crazy. Not many around. It's weird, isn't it? But anyways, moving on. If you look at, this is a year to date, it most likely smashes, it always does, right? It smashes the stock market. It smashes individual stocks. It smashes the index funds. It always has. Ethereum does. You can see on the screen. Doesn't mean that's going to carry on going up though, just be careful. Data on Bitcoin is much bigger. But the one thing I want to talk about is obviously this. The BTC element of investing Bitcoin over the last decade has been the best by far. And that's why we've got to look at other things and got to look at this in terms of this as a tweet, as an example as well. You know, for me, I've said it loads. I say it loads. When you look at this, look at how good it has done over the course of the last 10 years. Absolutely smashed out the park. Most things have actually done pretty well, realistically. When you look at the accumulated kind of returns, even on the NASDAQ, the large caps, we are in a bull market for the stock market at the end of the day. I'm expecting to go down at some point. But look at how average the likes of gold is as a store of value. In my opinion, Bitcoin will eventually get to that point. Eventually. We may be dead then. But when it gets to a certain point, it will start to, you know, the volatility will ease off and it will become a store of value. Right now, it's like a growth of value, in my opinion. It's just growing. And it will continue to probably grow over the next coming years. When you look at the overall chart of Bitcoin and you zoom out, it just keeps eventually going higher. How many bad years have we had? Not many. When you look at, yes, there's some huge losses, but realistically it bounces back. You know, it's crazy when you think about it. If you can't enjoy the red, you know, periods where you can buy more, you shouldn't be in the game. But you got to look, 2018, everything died. You know, realistically, it's not like it's out of the norm. You know, apart from US cash that went up. Random. But at the end of the day, it's still looking good. So if we're looking at the overall chart of Bitcoin, right? If we go into like the monthly time frame, actually, let me go into a actual BTC chart, which has the actual Bitcoin sort of situation all over it. Let me have a little look. Actually, go BTC USD. Actually, let's just go. Get the full data, BLX chart, right? If we go onto this and go on the log scale and go on the weekly so you can see it, this is the world of Bitcoin, right? I'll ignore that. So when we start looking at that, I know it's like kind of random, but when you start looking at every single low, it's actually higher than the previous, which is kind of important. So when we start thinking of the history of it, boom, a couple of cents, 1%, here we go, off we go. Crazy when you think about where we have been and where we are going to on our journey. And even still, we're looking at this pullback thinking it's the end of the world. But realistically, it's absolutely, it's just as it is. But you can see it there, huge drop off. But realistically, if you zoom out, if you bought in basically 2021 at the start of it, you would be all right. Realistically, you'd be roughly, you know, decent levels in terms of rough break even at the end of the day. You just don't buy the tops. You just do not buy when everyone wants to buy it. Buy when people don't want to buy it. So maybe, very, very soon, there may well be a buying opportunity for you to accumulate your Bitcoin if you are looking to put money in. Dollar cost averaging, why not? At the end of the day, if you're thinking long term and you want to have a golden number of how many BTC you want to just hold on to as an investor, why not? At the end of the day. So this is how I do it, right? I've explained this before. I, in a nutshell, do something very, very simple. I buy good solid altcoins, in my opinion, that are good fundamentals for growth. Most of the coins that I buy have an element called Metcalfe's Law in it, where it is a network, right? Silica, great example. Polkadot, good example. And an exchange coin, maybe the likes of Swissborg, Pluton, for example. More users, the more verification that user base gets through transactional base will give it demand. If there's a supply and the supply tends to shrink, on a lot of these coins that do tend to shrink, there's burning mechanisms on them, burning the fees, Silica for example, you know, it will gradually increase that scarcity factor, not by much because they've got billions, but realistically it does help. At the end of the day, more users, more platforms building on these infrastructure, these ecosystems will eventually grow in price. And we've seen it over the course of this bullish period. Coins have done better than others. The likes of RSR as an example here, it looks terrible. It does. It looks awful. But realistically, the more people that use the app in countries that have got issues with poverty, it's going to increase the demand of it. The supply of the asset will obviously, be useful. It'll be working as a goal. So what I do is I wait for the BTC dominance to increase. Therefore, the altcoin prices in BTC alone. So I buy in Bitcoin and then I sell back into Bitcoin to trade it. I buy them low and I take them and sell them much higher. So for example, looking at Polkadot, you'd buy when the dominance at its highest, which it was at this point, and obviously as it goes up, you can make 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5, 10x your BTC by just selling it back in. I've done it on numerous assets. It does work, and then you gradually grow your pot. Risk management is key. But for me, I've always said this, I think if you are in this market, you should always be holding, in my opinion, Bitcoin. There could be a huge buying opportunity very, very soon for people to just, even if it is a small amount, you're going to get much more now than you would have got a couple of weeks back, really, or a couple of months back, essentially, when it was at 60k. It's important. You've got to think long term, and that's why I think long term, the best performing asset. It's starting to hold value much better than it used to, in my opinion. It's nowhere near as mental, realistically. It used to be a lot worse than this. You got to look at the stock to flow, scarcity, the amount of people that are actually interested in just holding it, more to the point. The wallets of the holders are going up and up and up. Important metrics. So for me, try and get one at some point in your life over the next coming years. Make it a goal. Accumulate one. If that is through profit, even better.